You are working. Not sometimes. Not when you feel like it. Every day. You wake up before you want to. You show up when it would be easier not to. You do the thing that is asked of you and sometimes more than that, because that is the kind of person you are. Your paycheck is $5,000 per month. After taxes, maybe it's closer to $4,100. Your rent is $1,600. Your car payment is $450. Utilities, groceries, insurance, gas. A few unexpected expenses you never planned for. And at the end of the month, after all of that, you have $340 left in your account. Not because you bought something stupid. Not because you were careless. Not because you did anything wrong. You just have $340. Here's the question. At that rate, when exactly are you supposed to become wealthy? Not comfortable. Not getting by. Wealthy. Most people think the answer is simple. I just need to earn more money. It sounds right. It feels right. And it's exactly what millions of hardworking people spend years believing. But here's something that should make you stop and think. Two people can earn the exact same salary. One quietly builds a net worth of over $1 million. The other reaches retirement with almost nothing. Same income, completely different outcome. It isn't because one of them worked harder. It isn't because one of them got lucky. The difference is that one person understands how wealth is built, while the other spends years unknowingly building something else. And that's the mistake. Most hardworking people aren't poor because they don't work. They're poor because the system they're relying on was never designed to make them wealthy. It's designed to pay them. Those are two very different things. So let's break down exactly where that system begins to work against you. Because once you see these patterns, you'll start noticing them everywhere. Reason 1. Your effort has a ceiling, and you haven't noticed it yet. Think about how your income works right now. You show up. You work. You get paid. You show up again. You work again. You get paid again. That is the system. And hidden inside that system is a ceiling that almost nobody points out when you sign your offer letter. The ceiling is this: you can only work so many hours in a week. At $25 an hour and 40 hours a week, you earn $1,000 before taxes. At $35 an hour and 50 hours a week, you earn $1,750 before taxes. The math scales with your time, and your time does not scale at all, because there are only 24 hours in a day and you need to sleep in some of them. That is not a work ethic problem. That is a structural problem. The people who are building wealth are not working more hours than you. Most of them are not even working harder than you. What they have done is build something alongside their income that does not require their presence to produce value. A rental property that collects $1,200 a month whether they are awake or asleep. A portfolio that compounds at 10% annually while they are sitting at a desk doing something else. A business system that generates revenue on a Tuesday afternoon when they are not in the room. That kind of income does not have a ceiling. Yours does. And until you build something that runs without you, the ceiling stays exactly where it is, no matter how hard you push against it. Effort without leverage will always cap your wealth at what your body can produce in a week. The moment you own something that earns money without requiring your time, that ceiling begins to disappear. But here's where most people think they've found the solution. They assume, fine, if my income has a ceiling, I'll just earn more. It sounds logical. In fact, it's exactly what most of us spend years trying to do. The problem is, earning more doesn't automatically make you wealthier, because for most people, every extra dollar that comes in quietly finds a way to go back out again. Reason 2, every time you earn more, you spend more. And the gap never moves. You got a raise last year. Maybe 2 years ago. Maybe you switched jobs and finally landed a higher salary. And yet, somehow, the number left in your account at the end of the month looks almost identical to what it looked like before. This isn't bad luck. It isn't inflation alone. And it definitely isn't a coincidence. It's a pattern. Economists call it lifestyle inflation. Every time your income rises, your spending quietly rises with it. A nicer apartment, a newer car, more subscriptions, better restaurants, small upgrades that feel harmless on their own, until they become your new normal. But here is the math of what happened. Say your take-home pay went up by $600 a month after your last raise. And say your apartment upgrade cost $250 more per month. Your car payment added $380 a month. A few new subscriptions added $90. You are now spending $720 more per month than before your raise, on a raise that gave you $600. You are worse off than you were before you earned more. And you feel fine. Because the apartment is nicer. Because the car is newer. Because lifestyle inflation does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, wearing the clothes of reward. Here is what that $600 could have done instead, if you had left your lifestyle exactly where it was and invested the difference. At 10% annual growth, $600 a month invested for 10 years becomes approximately $114,000. For 20 years, it becomes approximately $382,000. Not from a raise most people would consider significant. From the gap between what you earned and what you chose not to spend. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is the gap between what you earn and what you spend, allowed to compound over time. Every time you close that gap with lifestyle, you are trading your future for a feeling that will be ordinary within 90 days. The second rule is simple. The gap is everything. Protect it like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. But creating a gap is only half the battle. Once money starts staying in your pocket, you have to decide what that money is going to do. And this is where millions of hardworking people unknowingly hit another wall. Not because they don't have enough money, but because they've been taught to think about money in a way that almost guarantees they'll never build wealth. It starts with one word: debt. Reason 3, you were taught to fear the wrong kind of debt. This one is going to feel wrong before it feels right. Sit with it. Most people who grew up in working class or middle class households were taught that debt is dangerous. Pay it off. Avoid it whenever you can. If you don't have the money, don't buy the thing. That lesson isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. And the part that's missing has kept millions of people from using one of the most powerful tools for building wealth. There are two kinds of debt. They look identical on a loan agreement. They behave completely differently on your net worth statement. The first kind buys you things that go down in value. A car financed at 9% interest to drive to a job. A credit card carrying a balance that grows faster than you can pay it. A buy now pay later arrangement for a phone that will be outdated in 18 months. This kind of debt takes money from your future to pay for your present, and it charges you interest for the transaction. This is the debt that is quietly bleeding millions of hardworking people dry. The second kind buys you things that generate income or go up in value. A mortgage on a property that rents for more than it costs to hold. A business loan that funds inventory that sells at a margin. An investment in a skill that increases your earning capacity permanently. This kind of debt is a tool, and the people who understand that tool are using it to build wealth that your savings alone at your current rate would take decades to accumulate. Here is a specific example. A $180,000 rental property purchased with $36,000 down and a mortgage of $144,000 at 7% costs approximately $958 per month. If that property rents for $1,500 per month after taxes, insurance, and a maintenance reserve of $200 per month, you are clearing roughly $200 in monthly cash flow. That is not dramatic, but someone else is paying down $144,000 of debt on your behalf, month by month, year by year. And in 10 years, at 3.5% annual appreciation, that property is worth approximately $254,000. You put in $36,000. The asset is worth $254,000. That is what productive debt does when you give it time. The person who avoided all debt saved the same $36,000 in a savings account at 4.5% over 10 years. They have approximately $56,000. Disciplined. Responsible. Half the outcome. Not all debt is the same category of danger. Learning to tell the difference is one of the highest leverage things you can do with your financial education. The third rule is this: consuming debt makes you poor slowly. Productive debt builds wealth quietly. They look almost identical on the day you sign the paperwork. 10 years later, they couldn't look more different. But here's the mistake most people make. They hear productive debt and immediately think the goal is to borrow more money. It isn't. The goal has never been debt. The goal is ownership. Ownership of assets. Ownership of businesses. Ownership of investments. Ownership of anything that can continue producing income long after you've finished working. Because once you understand that, you realize something even more important. The biggest financial risk isn't having debt. It's depending on a single paycheck to fund your entire life. Reason 4. One income stream is not stability. It is dependency with a good disguise. Right now, almost everything you own depends on one source. Your rent, your groceries, your insurance, your savings, your investments, if you have any. Everything flows from one paycheck, one employer, one salary, one performance review each year that determines whether your income grows or stays exactly where it is. When things are going well, that feels stable, because the paycheck arrives and the bills get paid and there is maybe a little left over. The fragility is invisible until the moment it is not. The average American changes jobs 12 times over the course of their career. That is 12 gaps. 12 moments of zero income between one thing and the next. 12 negotiations where you are coming from a position of need rather than a position of strength. And every single one of those moments is dramatically more dangerous, financially, emotionally, professionally, when you have exactly one source of income and nothing else running in the background. But the cost of a single income stream is not only what happens when it disappears. The deeper cost is what it does to your position every single day that it is present. When all your money comes from one place, you cannot afford to upset that place. You stay in the role that is not growing you because leaving feels too risky. You do not ask for the raise you have earned because the relationship feels fragile. You tolerate things you should not tolerate because the alternative is losing the only thing standing between you and a genuine financial emergency. The shift does not require you to quit your job or reinvent your life. It requires adding one additional income stream this year. What? A skill offered as a freelance service. A dividend-paying portfolio, even a small one. A piece of property that produces cash flow. Any one of those, started small and grown consistently, changes the architecture of your financial life in a way that a raise at your current job simply cannot, because it means your financial life no longer has a single point of failure. A freelance skill earning $500 a month adds $6,000 a year. A dividend portfolio of $40,000 at a 4% yield adds $1,600 a year. A rental property clearing $250 a month adds $3,000 a year. None of those alone changes everything. All three together add $10,600 a year without your primary job doing anything different. And the confidence that comes from not being entirely dependent on one source changes how you negotiate, how you show up, and how many options you actually have. The fourth rule is simple. One income stream is one point of failure. Wealth isn't built on dependency. It's built on systems that stack, each one making the next one easier to build. And that's how wealth begins to compound. Not just money, choices, freedom, opportunities. But here's where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves. Not because they don't understand investing, not because they don't work hard, not because they lack discipline. They simply make almost every financial decision through the lens of today. And that's enough to keep someone financially stuck for decades. Reason 5. You are optimizing for today instead of positioning for tomorrow. This is probably the most invisible reason on this list. And it's the one many people will recognize most painfully. You're comfortable enough. Not thriving. Not financially free. But not struggling enough to feel like something has to change. Your bills get paid. There's food on the table. Life keeps moving. So every decision becomes about making this month a little easier, instead of making the next 10 years dramatically better. That's the trap. Because wealth isn't built by optimizing today. It's built by positioning yourself for tomorrow. Not because comfort is wrong as a goal, but because optimizing for how things feel right now almost always comes at the direct cost of where you will stand in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And that future position, the options you will have, the decisions you will be able to make from strength instead of scarcity, is determined almost entirely by what you do in the seasons when things feel fine and the pressure to change is lowest. Here is what the math looks like on that decision. Person A keeps their life exactly as it is for 5 years. They save an average of $150 a month. After 5 years, at 4% in a savings account, they have approximately $9,900. Person B makes 3 uncomfortable decisions. They keep the smaller apartment 1 more year, saving $400 a month in rent. They keep the old car 2 years past when it stopped feeling good, avoiding a $450 monthly car payment. They start a side income that produces $300 a month by year 2. They invest the combined difference, roughly $700 a month, into an index fund averaging 10% annually. After 5 years, they have approximately $54,000. Same 5 years. Same calendar. Same 24 hours in a day. One person is comfortable. The other is positioned. And positioning compounds. In year 5, the gap is visible. In year 10, it is significant. In year 15, it is effectively unclosable. Because the person who chose position early is now making financial decisions from a foundation that the comfortable person is still trying to build. The 5th rule is this. Comfort and position feel almost identical, until about year 7. After that, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. And by year 15, it's often permanent. That's why the question was never, are things okay right now? The real question has always been, where is okay taking me? And that brings us back to the question we started this video with. If you earn a decent income, work hard, pay your bills, and still have only a few $100s left at the end of every month, when exactly are you supposed to become wealthy? Now you know the answer. You don't become wealthy by working harder inside a system that caps your income. You don't become wealthy by spending every raise. You don't become wealthy by fearing every form of debt. You don't become wealthy by depending on a single paycheck. And you don't become wealthy by optimizing only for today. Those decisions don't just shape your next paycheck. They shape your next decade. That's what all 5 of these reasons have in common. None of them are about effort. You already have the effort. You've probably always had the effort. Nobody watching this video is struggling because they don't know how to work hard. If hard work alone created wealth, the hardest working people in society would already be the richest. But that's not the world we live in. Wealth isn't built by working harder. It's built by understanding the rules of the game and then putting your hard work behind the right system. Because effort is incredibly powerful. It just needs the right direction. And once effort is combined with leverage, protected by discipline, invested into assets, supported by multiple income streams, and guided by long-term thinking, it stops producing paychecks. It starts producing wealth. The problem is direction. If you found this video valuable, do me a quick favor. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who works hard but feels like they're never getting ahead financially. And if you're serious about learning how to build real wealth, not just earn more money, hit the subscribe button. Every week, I share practical wealth-building strategies, timeless financial principles, and actionable money lessons to help you make smarter financial decisions and build lasting financial freedom. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.